There's only a few more spaces here.
Yep, we got some big uns coming up.
Raised flag, breakfast, quiet time.
My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died. At the time, it was as far away as she could get. She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay.
There you go.
Yep, that's the other name that we saw out in the cemetery.
So that would make Edith half Norwegian, half Indian, I guess.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died.
Stuff like that makes sense as well.
Yeah.
It's maybe wasn't. Oh, it's the other way you want to go.
I want to go down here. Whee!
This is not safe when you're pregnant. But like, yeah, that is one of the things that, like, to some people they do turn to religion as like, even if it's not something that they're actively practicing, it can be a bit of a coping mechanism if they've been through some stuff. Like, I know some of my family have been through that as well. Yeah, we've got to go out the window. Behind you.
Ah, the big old window with the big ass
moved to
prompt.
India a week after graduation.
It's fine, I did the exact same thing when I played it the other day.
This whole thing about moving to another place to teach English is very
When my
apt
dad
because
died,
our mate and fellow
I felt
HFC member Tanner is moving to China
I'm
to
sure
teach
Edie was
English.
happy to have her back. The house had to get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that.
Also, I had a friend who had a half sister whose dad was Indian, so there's a lot of stuff in this game that kind of clicks with
Almost
me.
normal.
I think because it goes through so many different kinds of experiences, there probably is something that anyone who plays this could relate to one way or another.
Whoa.
The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle.
Kind of spoiling him, don't you think?
Well, given the habit that this family have of
After my
sealing off all the
you'll
rooms,
leave
they're
behind
eventually
for
gonna
me.
need to build up.
I guess, yeah. There it is, just out there like a ghost.
This is another one where you need to go through the window. On the other side.
Oh, I'll find you.
But you can't go all the way around either because there's stuff on the floor.
Motherfucker. Come on, Edith, you're pregnant, not fucking invalid, are you?
Have you ever been pregnant? Can you relate to this experience?
Can't say that I can, no.
This, from the art design, right away, you can kind of see the Unfinished Swan references here.
That was Giant Sparrow's first game, I believe. This music might be a reference to it as well, but I'm not entirely sure because I haven't played it.
I haven't played it either, but I believe I remember reading shortly
Milton
after
Finch
I played it the first time that this is a song from that game. But when we scroll through this picture here, when you scroll through the pictures here, this art style that they're using for him is very similar to what you see in that game.
Ooh, the rumble feels good here.
There is a bit of a fan theory that, given what's going on with him, we haven't had confirmation that he died. He was the one who we saw the, like, wanted, have you seen this child posters for. The two potential outcomes for what happened to him were either that he run away and died, or the more supernatural one, if you're going down that school of thought, is that he ended up becoming the king character from that game, and that's where he disappeared.
I'm not sure about that one, to be honest.
No, but again, I like that that's alluded to but isn't given a definitive answer, because this, again, like I said earlier, it's the kind of game that benefits from you filling in the blanks yourself.
We're going back down here? What's going on?
Yeah, you want to go back down here. This is where you go back on yourself a little bit and climb higher.
Then she sealed the doors. Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
I should play the unfinished one.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen much gameplay of it. I think it's like a puzzle platformer game, last I read.
Well, it's all like black and white and you fill in the world with colour, I believe.
Oh, right, like a sort of de-blob kind of look.
After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery.
As you do.
I think you want to climb up the other side there.
I was blocked off. I thought it didn't want me to.
Yeah, you got your little white dot of story.
The white dot of story.
Lewis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
I think we kind of get the picture.
Yeah. Weed, well, hookah, and video games. It's a Super Nintendo 69.
Lewis and I spent
The
a lot of time
Wonderland.
playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
It might be because he was stoned.
Maybe. Edith Finch.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse.
Oh boy.
Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life.
This up front, I'll say I think this is probably the most well done story in the game. I really like how they execute this.
Yeah, this one's pretty good. I'm just using the right stick here.
But he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior.
I mean, honestly, even if you weren't getting
His mind began to...
a fix for substance abuse, you would go inside yourself just through this kind of monotony.
Well, I think what's actually very clever and that a lot of media that talks about marijuana doesn't really address is that people who, like some, not obviously not everyone, but some people who do smoke weed and then come off it, because they're so used to that high, they find it very difficult to cope with monotony. Like, even just day-to-day life with, like, day-to-day tasks that they would usually be high for, because they've set their base level at that high, a lot of them become incredibly depressed when they don't have that, and that's what causes a lot of people to relapse. And that's kind of what's, like, they're showing here the fact that he has just a normal day-to-day job here that is hitting him much harder than maybe someone who had never smoked weed would have.
Yeah. I'm using the left stick for the left side, by the way.
Yeah, it's basically got you playing through both his real life and his fantasy life at once, which is genius.
Daydreaming at the cannery.
Because what you'll notice after you work your way further and further through the imaginary life is that you do sort of forget that you're also doing the other stuff. Which is, that's exactly what's happening to Lewis.
Yeah. Like, it took much longer for that fish to get it.
But you didn't really clock onto that until you actually picked it up, did you?
No.
So I let him go on.
Well, it's encroaching more and more.
Yeah, it's taking over more and more of the screen as he's losing himself.
He told me he'd made a new friend.
Doge.
On the edge of a city named Lewis Topia.
You know, not all that original, but whatever.
Brick by brick.
Yeah, we can workshop the names, it's fine.
Then he made musicians.
Yo, break it down, King.
And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something.
Like the band motif is great as well because you notice there's a new instrument track kicking in as he's getting further and further away from reality.
He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him.
The bosses won't care so long as he's doing his job.
In the reality, you're not necessarily going to notice that something's going wrong because it actually looks like he's getting better and better at his job.
So he could do whatever he wished.
Like that, I'll admit it's a little bit tangential and projecting, but that's something that sort of hits me a little bit as someone who is clearly like very differently abled in a way that wasn't clocked onto while I was in school because because of my conditions I always finished all my schoolwork and everything.
Right.
It's just one of those, like, you know, as long as everything looks okay from the outside, people aren't necessarily going to notice there's a problem.
Yeah, that's mental illness for you, mate.
New Louisville. St. Louis.
Okay, that one's...
That one's at least less
Started
false than
drifting
the
away
others.
from our reality.
If you look carefully, all these mountain ranges are actually pages of a book.
Minneapolis.
Okay, you're stretching a bit there.
Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery.
I think it's too far gone to care, honestly.
Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Lewis kept sailing on.
And that's the point where there's obviously a problem, but also, when you're a family member in that situation, I don't know how you would handle that.
Exactly, yeah.
In Lewisburg, he heard rumours of a
Which one, mate?
Go with the Queen.
handsome queen.
The very old-fashioned use of the word handsome, though.
I think it was deliberately being subversive, because the other one was like the beautiful prince, wasn't it?
But I mean, handsome was used to refer to women back in the day.
The queen was on her own
Yeah,
quest.
but like, I don't think that's necessarily what they're going for. Go and take your pick this time.
Rainbows are cool.
Radiant rainbows.
Yo. Fuck a rainbow, I guess.
I mean, if you get the serpents, then you do the same thing.
He followed the sound of her
Knocking rainbows as he went.
Yeah, let's hear some
Electric
sitar.
Dance, war, dance.
His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound.
It's like at this point you've just become numb to the fish flying in off screen.
Really? And now we've kind of fully evolved into 3D.
It is literally just the fish on screen now, and that's just showing that he's so far gone now.
In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king. For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Lewis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace.
I'm not sure about that one, fam.
Nah, like there's ways that you could kind of compromise there,
My
because I feel like,
imagination is as real as my
to a
body.
degree, someone's imagination
hard
is
to argue
part
with.
of them, but, you know, there's got to be a reality check somewhere. Was that a wonder swan?
Began to forget
Maybe.
the world we know.
What a dreary place.
I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker.
Yeah, escapism is healthy in moderation, but, you know,
Yeah.
it can have its own problems.
That goes for
Began to
nostalgia
despise
as
the
well.
man with a royal contempt.
You can appreciate the past, but you can't forget the present. But I feel like this is like a final shot of
I
him
still thought
there,
I could save him.
seeing himself in the third person. Is pretty much
Even
everything you
after he
need to
said
know.
he was being crowned king over all
Molly
the
had
lands
a
of
similar
wonder.
thing as well, didn't she?
Yes, indeed so.
The palace would be packed with his companions. Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on inviting him.
There he is. Or she. Hey, it's Molly. Nice touch of them all being faceless.
His queen waited
It's
before leaving
partially an
the
outside thing, but it kind of does tie into him being like the king of his people or whatever.
palace. There was only one thing left to do. Bend down his head.
I'm not liking this.
And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
A few faces left now.
Leave the way we came, or go out this way.
Out the new door, yeah.
I think you're right though, that is one of the better sections of the game. Like, there's no one I would say was
On the way back from
mid,
Lewis's funeral,
so to speak, but
my mom told me to start
that
packing.
one and
She waited until the day before
I
we left to tell
think
Edie.
Barbara. Yeah, Barbara and Lewis are probably my favourites.
I'd agree with you there.
not sure
I feel
if
like
it
it's
would
both
make it
because
easier
they
or harder.
change up the gameplay enough that it feels like something different and like it just draws you back in.
I wish we'd stayed.
But also in terms of the way Lewis is handled, it's just when I think of an art game, a game that is telling a story more so than like traditional gameplay, I feel like that's the perfect way to bring gameplay elements into it without
My
either
mom ended
element
up
obstructing the
leaving
other.
behind.
Christ, the mum just ran. Just got away from here as fast as possible and as far as possible.
What happened that night had been coming for a long time.
Well, we saw that from the fact that as soon as we got into the house, there were still like takeaway boxes and things like that that hadn't been cleared up. It was like, we are leaving now.
Yeah.
But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night.
Our room.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
Yeah, I've been here before with the mother and the grandparent arguing.
Yeah, sometimes it's best to just stay away.
the power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
Although saying that, I don't think Edie would have been climbing around like this.
Really?
Like, I think it said that she was 93 when this was happening.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning.
Again, is the curse real, or did them reacting to stories make the curse real?
It could go either way.
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born.
Yo, law.
That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way.
Well, we're gonna have a Lost Woods scenario here.
I got turned around.
Not entirely sure.
I started seeing things.
Oh, I see. This is... Yes.
There's some hallucinations here, or maybe not.
Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them.
One or the other.
Like, even just going out to a house that has
Can't explain,
so many
but that I
memories
need you
that
to try.
may not be the
What are you
best.
doing in here?
That in itself
It's
is one of
mine.
those things that is probably not a good idea, but you know you wouldn't not be able to.
I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the band came to pick her up, but she was already gone.
I mean, she was mixing medications with the wine and whatnot.
After that, we moved around a lot.
I feel like it's this ending sequence
both
that
tried
is
to
why,
get the best of it.
between the two arguments, I kind of feel a little bit more sympathetic towards Edie's one. If only because, like, regardless of reasons, it's something that always irks me a little bit. The idea of taking a child away from their family like that. But by the same token, you know, like sometimes a well-meaning parent might do that for their own reasons.
My mom.
And then, like I say, mean well, so it's kind of hard to put your foot down on a particular side.
But she started getting sick a lot. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you.
The next generation of Finches.
I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself.
Yeah, about that.
But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
So we never really find out who the dad is, but I don't think that really matters, per se.
No, it's not related there, but we do know just through developer interviews that the child's name is Christopher. But that's not said in game, unless it's like tucked in the credits somewhere, but I don't think it is.
So there we go. That was What Remains of Edith Finch. A rather melancholy story about just life, really, and how bizarre and in a lot of cases brief it can be. It's obviously not gonna, be the hypest gameplay on YouTube, but it's a game I've wanted to bring to the channel for a long time, and God willing, we'll do a few more of these walkie-talkie things as we go down the line. But what did you think of the game overall, mate?
It's a game that I have come to appreciate a lot. I've said it before when we did Rapture, and I feel like the same thing stands true here, in that games like this, you get as much out of them as you put into them. And if you're the kind of person like me who's willing to sit down and soak in the story that's being told, I think this is a fantastic story you'll enjoy. The story itself is great, but also the execution. We already talked about how great Barbara's story was and how great Lewis's story was. That's the kind of stuff that I think is why I like these kind of games. It's making good use of this very specific medium, and I like that. And just on the whole, I just really enjoy this game.
The atmosphere is great. The design of the house just inflames my imagination something fierce. Like, I would love to have lived in a house like that. Why do I have to live in this bastard of a reality? It's not fair. But, bless. But yeah, this is just the type of game that I vibe with, really. It's not for everyone. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want to play it, because, it is mostly just sit back and soak in the ambience, really. But it hits a lot of the emotional beats that I look for in games like this, so I'm glad we got a chance to bring it to the channel.
Absolutely. Don't do the bath toys, guys, come on.
It's all part of the history, mate. Grr, arr. Now, coming up next on the channel is something kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, shall we say, from something like this. It's a lot more bright. It has some dark undertones, but they're not really relevant until, like, towards the end. It's going to be Klonoa 1 and 2 back to back.
I haven't played that game myself, but I have heard great things, mostly from Richie, but, you know, he's going to be here for a reason.
And speaking of, Richie will be the co-commentator for this one. He has a month off from his whole Hunchback of Notre Dame opera thingamabobs and whatnot, so we're going to make the most of it and get some recording in. And obviously, Stray will be after those two, and that'll be me, Flame, and Richie for that one.
Yeah, that's one that, like I said earlier, I'm gonna play through myself and get a feel for, and then come back and we can talk about it.
Well, there's the main theme.
Just kicking in gently.
That controller kind of reminds me of the Wii Classic controller.
A little bit, yeah. I got a kind of combination of that and the SNES controller.
Scarred for Life 1 was better. Yo, Alvinos. There they are.
Yeah, the family photo and the team. And there we go.
The replay a story option is now available. Select Edith to play from the beginning. But yeah, we saw the whole family here. Edith, Milton, Lewis, Dawn, Gus, Gregory, Molly, Barbara, Calvin, Sam, Walter, Edie, and of course, Odin. What a fucking name. Alright folks, that was What Remains of Edith Finch. We hope you enjoyed the game. If you did like it, pick it up. It's on Switch, Steam, and PS5 now, so pick your poison/console of choice. We'll see you next time for another HFC playthrough. Bye bye.